All right, Michael, now it's time to get to the blue chips. But before we get to this list, I wanted to ask you a question about the transition from college to pro at this position. Would you say that of all the positions in football, that this is the quickest learning curve going from the college game to the NFL game?
No, I don't think it is because the college game, the protections are fairly simple, right? It's either full slide, it's this protection. The protection game is so limited in college, right? And when you get into the pros, it becomes a whole different element in terms of the protections, in terms of who you got to block, how you're going to run it, the checks, the adjustments at the line, who's the Will, who's the Mike. When Brady's pointing out the Mike's Mike, who's got the Mike, who has them, all that, it becomes a little bit difficult. Who's reading off of a side? If the star comes, I've got him. If he doesn't, I go that way. So I think it's an adjustment. I think if you're smart, the players can learn it. But one of the elements that kind of curtails a young running back from playing is the fact he doesn't know the protections. And so I think that's really the hardest part. Those protections, to me, especially if you're not trained in it, that's why the Senior Bowl is so important, because you're trying to get trained. Now, they don't blitz in the Senior Bowl, but you're trying to find out about, can this guy figure out the protection scheme?
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why the Dallas Cowboys drafted Ezekiel Elliott, number 4 overall.
Who's not on the
there.
list? Who's not? To me, Elliott's a guy that should be on the list. He's so talented, but he hasn't played that way in the last couple of years, and he's not a weapon. He's now just a runner. Everybody knows he's going to run the ball between tackles. And he doesn't move the pile with the same juice, And so I love Zeke. I really do. I love Zeke. I would have paid Zeke. I'd have been the first in line to pay Zeke, but I would have been down. I would have been like, look, we're going to make this guy a weapon. Like, he's going to go out there and run some slants. He's going to run seams. He's going to be the Aaron Jones if we pay him. If we pay him this much money and we don't get 70 catches and average 10 yards a catch, we're wasting our money. That's the key. That's the key. When Gurley was humming and with the Rams, he averaged 10 yards a catch. That's what you want. I mean, Kamara, who's on our list here, he averaged 9.6. This is what we want. We want to make plays in the passing game. Because remember, Femi, when we're running the ball, we're going to kick field goals. When we're throwing the ball, we're going to score touchdowns.
I think that's a really good way to put that. I'm going to make a prediction. I think Zeke Elliott, this time next year when we do this episode, will be on your red chips list. I don't think we've seen the last of Zeke Elliott. Last year, he was dealing with the PCL injury after week 4. He looked a little more spry early on in the season because he was in better shape. But I think we'll see Zeke Elliott get back to some of the form. Not quite 2016, his rookie year, when he was arguably the best running back in the league. But I think he'll get back into this red chips category. That's my prediction for this upcoming season. But let's get to your blue chips list here, Michael. And to start it off, we have King Henry. Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans is a blue chip entering his age 28 season, 7th year in the league. Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints, Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts, Nick Chubb of the Cleveland Browns, and Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings. And I want to start with Jonathan Taylor because a lot of people will say he's the best running back in football. Is he RB1 in your opinion across the league?
Well, I mean, he's so talented, and think about this. Could you imagine if the Chiefs would have picked Taylor?
Oh my gosh!
Instead of Hilaire?
It wouldn't be fair.
I mean, Taylor got a bum rap, right? Taylor's playing in that Wisconsin offense, and people just thought he was a runner. Like, this guy's multidimensional, And credit Chris Ballard, Ed Dodds, the guys in Indianapolis. They did a great job getting him. He breaks tackles, he moves the pile. He's really talented. Look at this list again, Femi. Derrick Henry. To me, Derrick Henry is a lesson because I was not a Henry guy when he was at Alabama. I thought Henry was a point of entry back. And what do I mean by that? So certain runners have to be fed into the hole cleanly. So what that means is you can't have anybody kind of get in front of them where they have to elude left or right to avoid the first blocker. You've got to feed them into the hole, whether it's with a fullback or just a clean entrance. So I call them point of entry backs. I thought he was a point of entry back because I thought if anybody got in his way and he had to redirect immediately, the play was over. And he proved me way wrong. And credit John Robinson for making the pick in the 3rd round because I didn't see it. I didn't see him having enough speed to get to the edge on the outside zone either. But he's so big, he's so powerful, and he can do some things in the passing game that, when he's in the game, he opens up their play action pass game because everybody's got to play for the run when he's back there, right? And he can block. He's a big man, can block. So, I think to me, he sets if they don't have him, it's hard for them to get going offensively. It really is. But, Taylor, I think, who's the best of that list? That's a hard thing to predict. Taylor's so good.
Yeah.
Especially that they're going to use. I think with Matt Ryan this year, I think they'll even use him more in the passing game. Kamara to me is, I mean, he's special in his pass catching ability. He's got such burst and acceleration out of his cuts when he runs routes. He's hard to tackle. He can protect. He's in the perfect offense. He catches screens. He runs seams. Nick Chubb's another guy. I mean, the Patriots picked Sonny Michel over Nick Chubb because everybody's worried about Nick Chubb's knee coming out. Everybody was worried about Nick Chubb's knee coming out. And I can remember my son Matthew was playing at Louisville. He was coaching at Louisville, and they were playing in the Belk Bowl in Carolina, and they were playing Georgia. Louisville was playing Georgia. Lamar was on the team. And this Chubb guy was like, holy shit. Like, when you see a back early in his career, like the Robinson kid at Texas, like, just write it down. Like I don't know what happens to these guys. They get lost. But Chubb was like, holy shit, that's the best player I've seen. He's incredible. I mean, guy averages almost 5 yards a run, can outrun the outside zone, can take it to the house. I think they could utilize him more in the passing game as well.
Yeah, Chubb is awesome. And one thing that you've talked about throughout this Blue Chip, Red Chip series is balance. Chubb has some of the best contact balance I think I've ever seen from a running back. If you hit that guy, he's still going on his path, and it takes so much just to get him on the ground.
I think we just don't understand balance. I think, I spend so much time talking to basketball coaches, and, I can remember Tom Crean one time telling me about Dirk Nowitzki practicing shooting off of 1 foot, and how that really, his balance to shoot, the Europeans were really spending a lot of time on shooting off of 1 foot. That balance, we don't evaluate the balance enough. We don't evaluate it enough in terms of it's such a critical component. We know it's critical to running backs, but it's also critical to defensive backs. To be in balance, to be able to jump off of 1 foot. I learned that with Barkley. I mean, the guy leads the league in rebounding at 6'4.5", but he could jump off of 1 foot. That's a hard thing to do. It's really hard to do it, and I think that ultimately is the key.
Nick Chubb has had 1,000 rushing yards in each of the last 3 seasons. So has Minnesota Vikings running back Dalvin Cook. Unfortunately for Cook, he's never played in every game in a season, but when he's on the field, he's as good as it gets here. And I think he could be in for a big year with Kevin O'Connell now at head coach.
Yeah, it's funny at Florida. So again, I'm going back because I love when my son was at Louisville. Petrino was the coach. They had Lamar. I mean, they're playing Florida State in Louisville. The place is crazy. I mean, it's insane. And Louisville's got a good team. Petrino had a good program going, and they had Florida State beat until Cook came on the field. And once Cook came on the field, the game was over. Like, he ran the clock out. It was over. Like, you just like, holy shit, who is this guy? And so, but he's a weapon too. Like, he's a weapon, and I think with Madison behind him, they can keep him healthy. Like, I think you got to substitute these guys. Again, I'm going to keep saying this. Forget about playing 17 games. If I were a head coach in the league and I had a guy like Cook, and I knew Cook played 800 plays, and that's his really limit, or 900 plays, then I'm going to play him 900 plays. I don't give a shit how many games we have, right? 900 is limit. So does that mean he plays 12 plays? Does he play 15 a game? I don't know. But I don't want to go over 900 because I'm going to risk the injury. I don't care about games. I care about how many plays. And I think that's how you have to break it down.
No, I think that's smart, and helping these guys have long careers, because these running backs, as we know, this is a position that is very violent, and these guys don't typically last very long. So it's impressive to see someone like Derrick Henry on this list, who's entering year 7, but Henry only played in 8 games last year after suffering the foot injury against the Indianapolis Colts. Do you think that we've seen the best of Derrick Henry so far, or can he even get to another level here in 2022?
I mean, the amount of load management he's had over like 400 carries, 300 carries. It's like that doesn't even bother him. After he had that great year 2 years ago, I was predicting his downfall because the history says no back can duplicate that again. I think of the 29 backs, I went back and studied it. After the 29 backs that have had that many carries, only 2 of them produced another good season. But he's like he must have something in his body that just does it. I don't hold it against him. I think he'll come back and play really well again. I think he's amazing. So, the other thing about this list too, again, no first rounders on this list, right?
Yep. No first rounders.
So it's just remarkable. It really is. It's just like, it's a position that if you understand your offense and you can scout inside out, you can find players that can fit the roles you need them to fit.
Do you think overall the league is getting smarter about how they allocate the resources towards this position? Because we saw no first rounders go at this year's past draft in the spring. Is this something that we're going to see more going forward, where maybe the best running backs go in the top of the second round?
Yeah, unless he's a complete weapon, unless he changes the game, unless he can do other things. But the problem is that second contract. Are you going to give him a second contract? See, you talk about Cook. The reason you got to make sure once you invested in Cook, once you invested in Zeke, like can't be just a personnel guy or the cap guy makes a decision. Hey, the coach, oh yeah, I don't want to lose him. Well, okay, if we make this investment in the cap, then what is the role that we're going to use this player moving forward? Is he going to play 900 plays? Like, what are we going to get out of this? How is this going to work? Because if we're going to invest all these dollars in him, the chances of him fulfilling the second contract are not great. It's risk reward here. How do we handle that? And I think that's the question you got to ask yourself. Yeah, you don't want to lose a great player. I don't want to lose Cook, but I also don't want to spend all this money and not get the full benefit out of them. So there's got to be a strategic plan. This is one of the things that bothers me about the lack of synergy between coaches and personnel guys is how are we going to develop the team around what we have? And how are we going to develop the players so that we can fulfill the contract? And unless you have somebody really organized in that, like in New England, the way he kind of does it, it's hard.
It's why continuity matters. From the top down, it's why continuity matters. Everybody working on the same page. Nobody looking over anybody's shoulders there about getting fired at the end of the season. Just to recap the blue chips, Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans, Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints, Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts, Nick Chubb of the Cleveland Browns, and Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings. Thanks for watching the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi. And for more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to VSiN Live and the GM Shuffle podcast with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN, wherever you get your podcasts.